person we've got up is it's MJ from our Sustrans Scotland team. And now MJ's done a pre-recorded piece for us, and I'm going to ask my colleague Dean to share his screen and to get us underway. Thanks very much, everyone.
Hi, my name is MJ Somerville, and I'm the Cargo Bike Library Project Officer for Sustrans Scotland. This presentation is to introduce you to the Cargo Bike Library, and Logistic Hubs. The Cargo Bike Library has been running since 2017 and is funded by Transport Scotland. The Cargo Bike Library allows businesses, organizations, and community groups to borrow a bike for free to trial how cargo bikes can fit into their business model. Businesses can try different types of cargo bikes to see which works best for their business needs. The Cargo Bike Library trains all riders, assists with route planning, consults and signposts organizations to potential funding and opportunities. It also engages with local authorities and other public sector bodies to enable the championing of cargo bike logistics. The Cargo Bike Library keeps up to date on all the technological developments, training, and uses for cargo bikes to ensure the most up-to-date information. As you can see, there are multiple different cargo bikes on this slide. We have long johns, long tails, large logistic vehicles, three-wheeler trikes, and trailers. All of them have some pros and cons, but are all very good at moving goods in and around a city center. It can be hard to figure out where to start in cargo bike logistics. Edinburgh became a good place to start because many of the built environment factors were already in place. Edinburgh has a compact city center. 80% of the city is within a 20-mile-per-hour zone, which will now increase due to the COVID crisis. The local authority spends the recommended 10% of its transport budget on cycling and walking. It has a good off-road network and is working to include more off-road and segregated cycle paths. And e-technology has reduced the topographical barrier. Even if your city or town might not have the same infrastructure, or maybe better, you can still probably find some small pockets of your area to look at and see where some of the above can be implemented to make cargo bike logistics work. The planning of cargo bike hubs was released on the 14th of April, 2020. This paper was developed for the City Changer Cargo Bike Project, which is a Civitas 2020 and European Union funded initiative. This is a really exciting document as it gives local authorities, urban and transport planners a very succinct and detailed guide on how to plan cargo bike logistic hubs and what they can do to transform delivery logistics. You can find this document at www.cyclelogistics.eu under publications. We will also link this document at the end of the presentation. Listed here are some of the challenges and opportunities that thinking about the use of cargo bikes can produce. Still, one of the most common questions is, what is a cargo bike? Cargo bikes have been around for almost as long as the safety bicycle. And if you ask some of the older generations of our community, I can almost guarantee they will have a story from their childhood on how the cargo bike delivered their milk and bread, and possibly they were even the ones delivering it. The Planning of Cargo Bike Hub document goes through different types of hubs, their advantages, disadvantages, and what equipment might be needed. Permanent hubs can feel daunting, and you might feel overwhelmed that you need to change everything at once. The document describes some good temporary options that a city or town could trial. Pictured is a rendering of a permanent cargo depot which sits in a town center. This type of hub can handle large logistic deliveries or some B2B services. It could also be used for a shop and drop service. This is a way that traffic-free zones can comfort their customers that a car will not be needed. Customers shop along the high street and come to the hub at a predetermined time to pick up all of their goods, or a cargo bike delivery partner could deliver their packages to their house later in the day. This style of hub could also have lockers where the public can pick up packages from large delivery companies, significantly reducing the number of LGVs in the neighborhood. Another example is the Trams to New Haven project, where the City of Edinburgh Council and Sustrans have partnered to trial the use of consolidation hubs and cargo bikes to support businesses during roadworks. The earliest qualitative data that has emerged from this project does not really include the use of cargo bikes per se, but that the businesses started to communicate with each other more than before, and they consolidated all their deliveries. So that, for example, instead of the same vegetable wholesaler coming 3 times a week to 3 different businesses, it came just once a week, reducing traffic. All of these minimal gains really add up to reducing traffic flow. UPS uses a different method in both Dublin and Hamburg. This is where the lorry is driven in each morning with the day's packages. The packages are distributed throughout the city with the cargo bike. Packages are also picked up from customers and come back to the lorry hub in the evening. The lorry would then return to the consolidation center, maybe further out of the city. This is an efficient way to move large volumes of goods to and from the city center without adding to congestion. Charlie Mulholland is the owner of Zedify in Edinburgh. The Cargo Bike Library has allowed Zedify to trial different types of bikes for their fleet. Zedify also put some of our bikes through their paces, which gives an indication of maintenance and upskilling requirements for the bike industry, and to understand what is needed as we see new and much more complex bikes come to the market. Do speak to your regional transport partnership network all over Scotland. Sustrans and Nestrans have been doing some great work integrating cargo bikes into the transport network. In collaboration with Zedify Logistics, Sustrans and Edinburgh Napier University have been working for the last 2 years on meaningful action research on sustainable logistics as part of the SURFLOG project, an EU-funded North Sea region initiative. The link to this program can be found at the end of this presentation. We are right this minute experiencing the new normal. Although I've been talking about the new normal for a couple of years when it comes to the when we shift transport versus the if in relation to the climate crisis, I never really expected that the new normal would be related to a pandemic. The one thing that the cargo bike has proven in this time is its ability to be flexible, to be deployed quickly and safely. It also shows how we can connect a community. Lee Craigie, co-director of the Adventure Syndicate and the Active Travel Commissioner for Scotland, has been supporting this use. During the pandemic, they have been out and about helping businesses and organizations in delivering goods. Not only have they found this a good way to interact and help their community, but also to champion the idea that all of our worlds have been narrowed, and we are now seeing what beauty and community can be found within a 20-minute cycle, and what a world could look like where all your needs are available within the 20-minute neighborhood. Given the importance of minimizing HGV and LGV movements within low traffic neighborhoods, cargo cycles will be better able to navigate streets, especially where filtered permeability has been introduced or motor traffic excluded. This is creating more efficient delivery routes and minimizing heavy vehicle movements in residential areas. A clear commitment by local authorities to review its own models of service delivery to ensure that HGV and LGV usage is minimized, with unavoidable journeys being carried out wherever possible by cargo cycle or light electric vehicle. Thank you for listening while I share some of my insights of cargo bikes and logistic hubs and what type of neighborhoods are possible. Listed on this slide are some examples and resources of the links to the documents and programs talked about in this seminar. My contact details are on the footer slide of this presentation, and I do look forward to hearing from you with questions and insights.
Brilliant. So that was, many thanks to MJ for that first presentation, a really good introduction. Just to say, please do use the meeting chat function for any questions. I've seen a couple of people have raised their hands. We're not going to be using that function today, but please do use the chat function and we'll pick up any questions in the Q&A. But yeah, that was a great start. So thank you to MJ for that presentation. Next up, really excitingly, it's Irene from C-Sense. So Irene, over to you if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen.
Okay. Okay, can everyone see that okay?
Yeah, we can see it,
yeah.
Irene.
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Irene McAleese from C-Sense. So actually I want to share this with you today. It's a little bit of a story before we get into some of the data, but I actually first met MJ back at the VeloCity conference in Arnhem, Nijmegen back in 2017. We ended up being paired on one of the events where we got to sort of cycle around Amsterdam that time. And I guess I just want to point to this a little bit about serendipity, but really this is a really, I suppose, the spark of what's become a real collaboration and a co-creation between what I'm about to present to you today. So back in 2017, our company was, known for making these intelligent and connected bike lights. And I was there on a stand at that, talking to people at VeloCity about how the data that we collect from the bike lights can be used to help cities with better insights on how cyclists are experiencing the city and how the data could be used. And MJ at the time really listened to that and took that in. Obviously, we weren't involved with cargo bikes at that point at all. And then it was back in last year at the Cycle County, Active County event, bumped into MJ again. And it was there that I updated MJ and let MJ know about a new product that we were working on, a new consumer product called Air, which would be using some new technology. And this sparked off some ideas actually that we could start to sort of more formalize our collaboration. So let me just give you a quick background on C-Sense and who we are, and then I'll talk you through what we're doing at the moment with MJ and Sustrans in Scotland. So C-Sense, we're a cycling technology and data company. We're based in Northern Ireland. We're actually established in 2013, our products have gone on to be sold in many countries worldwide, and we've won a number of awards along the way, so recognising our innovation. Some people may know us because we're the preferred bike light supplier to British Cycling, and we're actually also on the board of Cycling Industries Europe, so we take quite an active role. We have products that I mentioned. We're known for our intelligent and connected bike lights. We have this new consumer product coming soon, which is a GPS bike tracker. We're also looking at bike share integration. But the key sort of differentiator for C-Sense is, for our bike lights, although they look like a regular bike light, they're brand with some pretty sophisticated technology, sensor technology and communications technology that allows us to take in data at a very granular level, process that data in sort of near real time on the device using the sensor technology that we have and some clever algorithms. Sort of take all that data into a data lake on the back end, and then be able to sort of visualize that data on dashboards. So when with the use of these products, we can unlock some pretty sophisticated data insights. So which do include things like the popular routes and the speed and the dwell times. But then because of the sensor technology, we can get much deeper and look at things like the road surface condition that the cyclist is traveling over, collisions, braking patterns and swerving, etc. And as I mentioned at the start, we have started working with cities using the data that we collect from these devices. We've worked with Manchester and Dublin, and we're working in Oxford, Denver, Singapore, a number of different places now. And one of the things that the cities like is that they can actually, take our lights and deploy them out to specific groups. So if they want, say, for example, more information on commuters or female cyclists, etc., they can get them into the hands of those people. And then, as I mentioned, starting to unlock some pretty unique data insights around safety and road conditions, etc. I'm going to whip through these really quickly because I want to get to the work we're doing with Sustrans, but just to give you a feel for the kind of data that we sort of gather. This is looking at speed in central London. You can see where there's dedicated cycle infrastructure along some of the routes along the river. People are able to travel at faster speeds. And then we have dwell times, looking at wait times going across different bridges and locations. We would look at swerving and braking. So this is quite useful sort of if you're baselining the performance of a city, if you can see where infrastructure has gone in and you can start to see the impact of that. So this the bridge there, Southwark Bridge has a segregated cycle lane there. We're seeing significantly less swerving for the cyclists that are travelling over that bridge compared to the one next to it, which doesn't have that. Looking at swerving and braking again, we worked with Arup in Manchester, who looked at how they would use that data to understand collisions that were happening in the area and use that to then help inform changes that they made and recommendations around speed along some of those routes. Road roughness, really exciting. We can look at the data that comes through there and understand that. It was used by AECOM on a project there in Dublin, who are able to correlate that with a visual inspection that would be given by an engineer literally going out on the street with a clipboard. They found a very high correlation with what we see in our data and those visual inspections. And then again, that helped to inform the level of service analysis that was done. And again, in Dublin, looking at sort of conflicts with pedestrians, we could see, although there was a really nice cycle lane, there was an area which you can see in yellow in the middle of the park there for St. Stephen's Green, which showed a lot of people braking. And this is, we realised, was actually the entrance to a park where people come out. So it was interesting to see conflict between pedestrian and cyclists and have some data. One of the newer things that we've been working on is to take those consumer product, the bike light, but actually to integrate it into a bike. And we've been working with Co-Cars as an e-bike share company in Exeter. A real differentiator, though, of what we're doing is not only the sensor technology, which was already quite innovative, but actually the way we send the data. Rather than going over the cellular network, which is quite expensive and has some limitations, we're really first to market in the UK to be able to use this new network called NB-IoT, which allows the data to be sent with a number of advantages. One of them is that it's a low drain on the battery, which means you can track a stolen bike for quite a long time. You can also, it has quite good positioning as well. It's able to send its position much better through walls and things like that. So it was really when we were talking with MJ that we got kind of excited about e-cargo bikes and their huge potential. I mean, for cities, the last mile, delivery of freight has a huge potential to transform cities. And the more we thought about it, the more we thought, actually this would be a really nice use of our technology. And we realised that if cities really want to make that shift, it's one thing to promote it. It's one thing to talk about, the standards for cycle infrastructure that are required, but it's another thing to have the data to know how the existing infrastructure can be improved, so that it makes it safer and more attractive for the people that want to use the cargo bike. So MJ explained some of the challenges that Sustrans had experienced with the cargo bike library. There was the existing solutions weren't that accurate with the GPS. It was quite high cost for the data roaming charges. And also there's just a lot of work on the back end for the team to be able to stitch all the data together and try to understand it and actually use it. So it meant that a lot of the data was sitting on the shelf and not really used as much as it, or made the most of it. So talking with MJ, there was this kind of discussion, wouldn't it be great if we could have some data that was user-friendly, that was in a dashboard, that people would use it, that we could understand how the bikes are being used, in the library. If we lend a bike out, is it actually being ridden? And this helps us to get more support to expand the scheme. And then also to, understand what are the challenges perhaps of the users who are using those bikes. How do they, what are the popular routes that they're taking? Maybe where are they experiencing dwell times? Where are the swerving or braking and the issues that might show up conflicts? And finally, looking at a standardised way to collect data as well, something consistent. If they do expand the scheme, that they would have a measure that would compare, one scheme with the next. And lastly, something that I thought was really nice was that Sustrans wanted to work with a company who had similar values and appreciation of the role for sustainable transport. And I definitely felt, speaking with MJ and the rest of the team in Sustrans, that we're on the same wavelength, I think, in a way, which definitely helps with collaboration. So we've embarked since last year on this, what we kind of thinking about as a customer-guided development with Sustrans for a solution to help solve those challenges that MJ talked about. Bearing in mind this has all been done, really during the pandemic, mostly in terms of the testing, it's fantastic to see how fast together we've been able to work and bring forward a solution. Over the past few months, the Sustrans team have been working with us to help with the design of the product, and then literally also taking the bikes out and doing testing out in the field. Mostly what we're doing at this point is tweaking some of the way we send the data to optimize the use of the battery. And then we've also been working on a data dashboard that can show a lot of the requirements. So this is the dashboard that we have worked out, and this is really showing you a bit of a mock-up. Where you see the coloured dots, this would indicate sort of like the location of a bike. These, when the dashboard is live, would be moving in near real time. So you will be able to see the location of the cargo bikes moving around the city. And then whenever a mouse whenever you hover the mouse over one of the dots, you would be able to bring up information about that specific bike. So looking at, the total miles that bike had done, for example. And this is obviously really useful for MJ, trying to understand where are the bikes, how often are the bikes being used. You can search by bike and by date. If the bike is stolen, obviously being able to help track that down and know the location to be able to share that with police is useful as well. So this has individual bike stats. It also has the stats for the fleet here as well, so a quick way to look at CO2 saved and average speeds and things like that, which are useful for reporting. And then once the data starts to build, then we can start to look at things like aggregate data, and this is showing some data from our bike lights in London that gives you an idea of what we'll be able to see from the routes, looking at braking and swerving. And so really be able to just press those different layers to bring that up. So I guess just in closing, you know, it's been a fantastic experience to date working with MJ and the team there in Scotland to develop this product. We are, you know, just now in the kind of final shakedown testing stage before we go into full production. So these units will be out on the fleet of bikes in Scotland very soon, and then there'll be a fully commercial offer available for other e-cargo bike operators from about January. So we're hoping that this data that starts to come in from this process can really help cities understand how to make investments in infrastructure. So looking at things like, you know, what is experience with a cargo bike rider? Are there maybe places where they need wider lanes, the speeds, areas of conflict, overall design of the network to just make it more efficient, understanding how to get people from A to B in the most efficient way. And then bearing in mind as well is that the work that's done to make things better for e-cargo bike riders also has a flow-on effect in that those routes are often more likely to make it more inclusive and accessible for a wide range of other riders as well. And then where we can go with this technology, I think we're even at the very, you know, we're at an exciting stage now that we have this baseline technology there, being able to send near real-time data from the bike with all this amazing sensor technology. This unlocks quite a lot of possibilities that we would be keen to collaborate with people on going forward. So things like, for example, creating a green wave concept. Is there, you know, if a city, you know, wants to help prioritize, you know, the movement of deliveries around the city, there could be a way to give priority for e-cargo bikes at lights, for example, more likely to get a green light, looking at sort of virtual loading bays, and even smart contracts and things like that. So I think it's exciting, really, the possibilities that the technology can enable. And we're very grateful to have had the opportunity to work with Sustrans, who are experts in this field and have been able to share with us the needs that they have, and that hopefully will also be useful for a wider market as well. So thank you.
Brilliant, Irene. That was, yeah, wow. And yeah, you used the word exciting a few times, and I definitely agree. Yeah, the possibilities are endless. Yeah, very, very interesting. So thank you, Irene. Moving on, our next speaker is Nick Mason, who's coming from Zmove in Tyneside. Nick, do you want to share your screen? And
yeah, no problem. I say no problem. We'll get there. Come on. It was all working so well.
Hi, Irene, it's Richard here. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Is the product you've been talking about the Air? Is that what it's going to be? The one that you got online called the Air?
The Air device is our consumer product. So what we've worked with Sustrans on is converting that into a fleet solution.
Okay,
So
I'll stop now. I've interrupted.
No, Richard, thank you for diving in there and allowing Nick to get his presentation up and running. So yeah, brilliant. Nick, over to you from Zmove.
Thanks a lot. Sorry for the false start there. The joys of presenting this way. So yeah, my name's Nick. I'm the co-founder of Zmove, a low-impact logistics business based up in the northeast of England. We started trading last spring, so spring 2019, with the aspiration of building on the foundations of other real pioneers in the UK and Europe, people like Zedify and others, who've started to normalize e-cargo bike goods movement. There wasn't a service like us up in the Northeast at that point, and with 3 other directors, we worked together and did enough business consultation to decide to make a start. So first bikes went on the street last year in the spring. We very much set the business up to be an ethical business, paying just a bit more than the living wage, trying to offer proper employment and training. And over time, we started to build a solid client base. Just talk to you about 1 or 2 of those clients today. Using a range of different bikes, 2 wheels and 3 wheels. You should see both of those types today in the presentation, and they are electrically powered. The piece of work I'm just going to focus on is some work that we started this time last year with the Newcastle Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust here in Newcastle, one of the first institutions we got to meet just as we started trading, fortunately coinciding with the Trust's declaration of a climate emergency, which made them the first NHS Trust in the country to declare a climate emergency. And our arrival gave them an early opportunity to trial the use of an electric cargo bike courier as a replacement for a traditional combustion engine van service that every afternoon goes back and forth between 2 different parts of their campus in Newcastle, dropping off and picking up a range of different medical goods. A couple of examples here of the types of goods that we've been given the opportunity to move. You can see on the right the medical samples being taken down to the pathology lab, and on the left a range of other goods, including laundry and post and sandwiches and all kinds of bits and pieces that we get asked to move. These are goods that were being moved in the back of a traditional van, and as you can see here, one of a myriad of examples where actually a van isn't needed to run a service like this. And as we've slowly learned more and talked to more and more, for instance, NHS trusts, I think what we're seeing is the opportunities for this type of transition are huge, absolutely enormous. Most trusts that we've talked to are doing more than 1 million miles a year in internal goods and patient movements. So the opportunity for transition is hugely significant. The 3-month trial that we did for the trust was then written up by them with some support for us and submitted to NHS England, and was then published in February as a case study linked to greening the NHS. And this webpage you can see here is an extract from the Greener NHS website. This is exactly again a similar extract from the benefits the trust described for the service that we'd run for them, and they included environmental benefits, carbon savings, nitrous oxide emission reductions, very significant financial savings as well, and improvements in both staff and patient experience also. So I think a very good example of what cargo bikes can do, the difference they can make, particularly in an urban setting. These are not trivial benefits, and there isn't a downside here. Just to end, we're still running that daily service for Newcastle Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust a year on from starting the trial, and we hope to get the opportunity to run many more services in the Northeast and beyond with that kind of healthcare theme. There is an enormous amount to be done just in the healthcare sector. But obviously, over the last few months, we've also been trying to flex and accommodate some of the challenges around COVID and the lockdown. And that led us to quickly being challenged by some of our customers to switch from doing business to business goods movements, which is where our focus was, both in healthcare and in the food and drink sector, to start to look at home delivery, which we've done for, I think, 5 of our clients since March. This is an example of a typical day since lockdown, where we've had 4 vehicles on the road, 2 of which have actually been electric cars. So a couple of bikes, a couple of cars, giving us a little bit more range. And in many cases, making more than 100 deliveries a day, all with a low impact vehicle of one sort or another. So I think from a perspective of e-cargo bike logistics, often even more impact can be gained by looking at a range of different low carbon vehicle types. That's certainly where we see our future in ZMove, being able to offer more utility to a wider range of customers. I think many of you attending today are from a local authority or planning background. I think a couple of things from my perspective, trying to promote our services up here in the Northeast. We've talked to 4 local authorities in our area, spent quite a lot of time with them. We're yet to win a single piece of local authority work. More than that, we're yet to be able to tender for a single piece of local authority work in our area yet. So I think a couple of things just to consider. If we want big bikes like ours and many others being successful in offering an alternatives to small vans in our cities, good quality infrastructure is essential. So please do think about big bikes when any new active travel infrastructure is being planned. Bike lanes, for instance, do need to be protected, and they need to be large to give real utility, not just to our bikes, but a range of other low impact vehicle users. And I think a real plea around procurement, where there are opportunities, if you do want low carbon logistics to grow quickly in your area, please do specifically procure them. We've seen a number of tenders go out where we might have been able to deliver a very small portion of a much bigger logistics tender, and as a result haven't felt capable of responding. Do consider parceling these things up to specifically give small businesses that offer a low carbon alternative a realistic option of winning some work. We are seeing that start to come through. I think Cambridge City Council have just let some work. I've certainly been tendering some low impact local courier work, specifically mentioning cargo bikes. That was a quick run through from me. We've got loads more examples of our collaborations on our website, and be delighted to talk to anyone else that wants to follow up on any of that content. Thanks very much for the opportunity to share our learning to date.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Nick. That was a really great presentation, and your NHS example was very, very impressive, and quite amazing to see how much money they're saving. And your broader points around infrastructure, I'm sure, are shared by the majority of people on this call as well. So thank you ever so much. The next, I'm absolutely delighted. The next 2 people who are going to chat, they don't have a presentation, but they are Nick from Zedify in Southampton and Robin from Bit and Box. So it's actually a provider and a customer who are going to basically have a chat for 10 minutes. Over to you, Nick and Robin. And just quickly to say, I'm pleased to see the meeting chat is filling up, but please do get your questions in, which we'll cover shortly in the Q&A process. Over to Zedify Southampton and Bit and Box.
Hi there everyone, it's Nick Stokes here from Zedify Southampton. I'm the operations manager down here. And for those, many of you know Zedify already around the rest of the country. We are one of the most recent depots to join the network, one of the few to join from scratch last year. So very similar to Nick Mason there from ZMove. We started from scratch last year and operate similarly in 2-wheel urban arrows, as we can see there depicted on the screen there. It's my colleague John. 2-wheel urban arrows mainly three-wheel trikes, such as the Maximus and other examples, and also an electric van also, which gives us the ability to go a bit further, do some intercity stuff from Southampton or Winchester, and take larger things if required, such as equipment, or bulky large equipment. So again, thanks very much for inviting us to chat today. It's a great opportunity. And I'm very pleased to be able to have Robin Blumell with me from Bit and Box Company, one of our earliest and main clients. And the four main questions we're going to whip through, I'll just read them out just to highlight, the advantages of cargo bikes over conventional vans, and the customer feedback Robin's received so far. Robin will mainly be covering those two questions. And then I'm going to be talking a bit more about what challenges we've seen during the COVID-19 pandemic, and then what challenges we face from the roads infrastructure, specifically around Southampton, and what needs to be improved. So to begin that, I'll say hello to Robin and hope he can lead on those first two questions.
Hi Nick, thanks for passing it over to me. This is Robin Blumell. I run the Bit and Box Company, and I deliver fruit and veg boxes in and around Southampton, and we've been delivering for over 5 years now. ZFI approached us last year at a key point for us when we were looking for a delivery partner, and they approached us, and it was pretty much perfect timing for both of us, I think. They've allowed us to expand and grow exactly as we were hoping to, but without the complications of managing all of the deliveries ourselves. Before ZFI started delivering for us, I used to carry out all the deliveries myself in a van, and moving up to that and expanding from there was quite a tricky point, and having somebody handle all of the deliveries was extremely helpful. The cargo bikes have been particularly helpful and have a few advantages over vans, particularly for us here in Southampton. It's a fairly congested city, and it has quite a complicated road network. The trikes are very good at handling this, between their ability to navigate some rush hour traffic and their ability to use various shortcuts or more direct routes across the city is extremely handy. The other main advantage for us is actually the small size of the cargo bikes and the electric van means they're able to do smaller routes from our fairly centrally located depot, which means that the fresh produce stays in our fridge right up until the couriers take it, and then it gets delivered to the customers in a very short space of time from leaving our fridge, which allows us to give a very fresh and very high quality product to all of our customers. Moving on towards how our customers have received it, and that has been, as anticipated, absolutely wonderful. Our customers love it. The trike is colourful, people recognise it, and people talk about it. People talk about how happy they are to see it coming down the street towards them. And I think the whole accessibility, approachability to almost everybody, there's very few people that can see it and have anything negative to say about it. So the overall image and appeal that gives is really advantageous. I think I'll let Nick take over from here on the last couple of points.
Thanks, Robin. Yeah, it's always great to hear that the feedback is very positive from our customers of our clients. And but yeah, a couple of things I forgot to mention at the start there. As mentioned, we've been working together for probably about 14 months now. And over that first year, I think we've done around 7,000 deliveries for Bit and Box with our cargo bikes, cargo trikes, and the electric van. And in total, displaced around or stopped around 5 tons of CO2 emissions. So we're really happy how much we've been able to work together and for us to serve them. But yeah, moving on to those two other questions. So the third one was, what changes have you seen during the COVID-19 pandemic? And of course, there's a huge change. Many people, as Nick Mason mentioned, many people will know ZFI and a lot of other cargo bike delivery companies as B2B companies. Funnily enough, because we've started working with from the get-go with many veg box companies and other home delivery companies, we've always been a little bit more business to consumer focused, and that was really thrown into focus when suddenly the pandemic happens. And the huge change was the small amount of B2B stuff we were doing completely dropped, while the B2 consumer stuff, the home delivery stuff in particular through Bit and Box and others, shot up, as you may expect, with people struggling to get to shops, so on and so forth. So the demand massively changed, and the area of focus we were doing changed even more so. But some of the main things we've seen, of course, is the car use plummeting at first, and the roads were very easy and it's quick to get around, followed by a gradual increase. And one of the other downsides, of course, was after people were pent up for so long, we found people were quite angry out on the roads, angry drivers with these pent up frustrations of the whole pandemic, the whole lockdown. So that was something to be aware of, and to make sure our team members were clear on handling and being very cautious around junctions, and just aware of some angry drivers out there, understandably. The other things we saw during the pandemic has been the use of bicycles. So of course, we saw it significantly went up for leisure use during the lockdown, especially via in after hours on the bike lanes and in the parks in particular. And then more recently, as people have been returning to work, that's followed through, we've noticed, with commuting time. So it seems to be that people are using them more for commuting. Also now people are going back to work, which is great. And it has mean the only downside is the bus cycle paths are a little bit busier for us, but that's no bad thing overall, really. And we're still faster overall, because while the cycle lanes are extremely important, of course, we find we increase our speed even more so by using particular cut-through routes, certain routes the cars aren't able to go down because of a blockage halfway through to disable cars. Otherwise, the other big change, of course, was our delivery process, and this, in particular, the making sure there was no contact at the point of delivery, plenty of space given, using the gloves and masks, and the change in our processes back at the depot, making sure there's a rigorous cleaning process being undertaken at the depot, wiping down, sanitizing surfaces regularly, and trying to space out the start and end times of couriers so there's not too many people at the depot at once. So those are the main things that we came up against during the pandemic and are still working around. Moving on to the fourth question, what are the challenges we face most from the road infrastructure around Southampton? I just wanted to highlight that Southampton City Council has done a fantastic job recently. The amount of work going onto the cycle lanes is fantastic to see, and we are certainly benefiting from them with our faster cycling around the city, moving goods around, and also by the safer our couriers feel, it always results in a better service at the doorstep, making a delivery. The safer our couriers are, the happier they are doing their job. We've really noticed that as well. The more cycle routes there are, the better, the safer and better our couriers feel. Some of the other main issues we probably come up against, specifically in Southampton, and which has been highlighted earlier, is the quality of the roads, the level of potholes and the deteriorated roads, especially with regard to our deliveries for Bit and Box Company and a couple others, when we often deliver very delicate products, eggs, for example. So we had to ensure our couriers were fully trained on the best way to pack these more delicate consignments, the best packing procedure, and then when they're out on the road, to be extremely cautious, to be really eyes on the road, looking for potholes and avoiding them, and slowing down for speed bumps, which of course in a car is pretty even though they don't often do it, it's very easy to slow down for potholes. When you're cycling a cargo bike, even with electric propulsion or electric assistance, it can be you can hesitate and wanting to slow down too much, even though you have to, of course, for the safety of the other road users and your consignments in the cargo bike. So potholes and quality of the roads has been a big challenge, and has made sure and as a result of that, we really had to double down on the delivery process in terms of safe packing and safe riding. Other than potholes, I would say one of the things we often come up against is there seems to be there's still many instances, of the new cycle lanes being built being slightly not quite wide enough for some of the larger cargo bikes, and in particular the cargo trikes, the wider of these cargo cycles. That's a bit of an issue in certain parts of the city. It's more of an issue going forward, I think, when more of these trikes are being used. And who knows, perhaps it may be an idea, or maybe it's something, an area Sustrans could work on with the wider local associations, local authorities around the country, perhaps via the local authorities association, perhaps finding a standard and agreeing a standard by which these road improvements could be made by. But that's one idea really. But so indeed, so the width of the new cycle lanes is sometimes a problem, but overall, with the new cycle lanes, it means less people or more people are using them, therefore less people are driving, and that assists us greatly in our speed getting around the city, less cars on the road.
I think that's great. That's great, Nick.
Indeed, and that's pretty much that. I was wrapping up anyway. Indeed, so that's probably the main things. Thank you for the chance to talk.
No, Nick, thank you, and especially thanks to Robin as well. I think it's a really unique perspective of provider and customer and how you're working together to deliver such a an exciting service. So yeah, no, thank you to both of you for sharing that. Yeah, it was great. So the last speaker we've got before we move on to the Q&A is Richard from the European Cycle Logistics Federation. And at this point, I think Dean is going to share Richard's screen, and then Richard's going to talk us through the slides. So Dean and Richard, over to you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Dean. Good afternoon, everybody. I will be very brief, but I think that you'll find this just adds a completely different layer to all the excellent things you've heard so far. So hopefully I'm not going to be doing a load of repeats. There's always a dreadful moment when you come after everybody else that you find they've all stolen your thunder. But this hasn't happened in this case. But that's because we've been hearing some very, very practical people talking about doing practical tasks. And above all, that's what cargo bikes are for me. It's a practical solution. You can deliver it today. Next slide, please. I'm going to cover quite a few acronyms and initials and things. I apologize in advance, but it's essential in this instance. The key phrase on here is scaling up. I want to ask you all, where do you want all this to be by 2030? And my own view is that if we don't have a serious vision of how we're going to scale up, then actually we'll still be doing trials and pilots and goodness knows what in 25 years' time. And I'm impatient. Some people will say surely not, but I'm a very impatient person, and I want to see us thinking about the whole ecosystem for cargo bikes and what it's going to look like. Next slide, please. So first, a little bit of background. In June 2019, the European Cyclogistics Federation and the new trade body for cycling industries in Europe, Cycling Industries Europe, funnily enough, we formed a strategic partnership to promote cargo bikes and cycle deliveries or cyclogistics. And this was boosted by the project already mentioned by MJ in their presentation earlier, City Changer Cargo Bike, which itself, and I think the history is important here, was part of the aftermath of two other EU-funded projects, Cyclogistics and Cyclogistics Ahead. So you heard that Irene started in 2013. Well, Cyclogistics project started in 2011. And you're beginning to get a picture of this has all been going for the last decade now. And it's beginning to come to a point in the road where I'd say we're growing up. So in October 2019, we formed the Cargo Bike and Cyclogistics Experts Group. And it set up a load of task groups to take us forward in certain key areas. Next slide, please. So we have a, 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 Our colleague Arne Berenson from Berlin, from Cargo Bike Jetzt, if you're interested in following his work, has the accredited place for European Cyclogistics Federation on the CEN Technical Committee 333, which covers cycles, Working Group 9, which covers cargo bikes, which started work on the 20th of January in Delft, in Netherlands, with its first meeting. It had its second meeting online last week. This is drawing on earlier work in Germany on the DIN standard and in France on the Norme Française. And the Germans and the French have both produced a cargo bike standard. And what's happening now is that this is being taken up at European level. And the real question for yourselves is, why bother? Isn't this just bureaucracy? It's going to take forever, etc. And I would say it's all about safety. What's the payload? We've already had a question in the chat about payload. And we've already had the same question, the same questioner was wondering about how we make sure it remains a pedal cycle. So when people ask me, well, is this effort all worth it, and so on and so forth? My goodness, yes. And we may only just be in time to prevent some people stepping into this arena who don't have our best interests at heart. So I put it to you, you've got a cargo bike, it's got a rider on board who weighs 75 kilos, it's got a payload of 150 kilos, and the brakes fail going down a hill. It's too awful to think about. I'm pleased to say I don't know of any big disasters like that, but we've got to be sure that we're not going to create any. So one of the reasons we're thinking about this standard is precisely to sort that out. But the second bit is that right now, the European Union is studying, it's just starting to study whether or not new electric propulsion vehicles of any kind should be type approved, and if so, how? Now, at the moment, e-cargo bikes are covered by the electric assist pedal cycle regulations, with all the benefits that that produces, and many of those have also been listed in the chat, I'm pleased to say. But if somebody decides that cargo bikes got to come into type approval, that will add to cost, it will slow down development and innovation, and it will certainly prevent some of the benefits people have been outlining to do with who's allowed to ride. So this is a big deal, and I'm really pleased to say that we're right in the midst of this, and other members of the cycle logistics and cargo bike experts group are also serving on this standards committee. Next slide, please. We've then got a second task group looking at marketing and communications. And again, just in case you feel this sounds like it's all too windy, well, Cycling Industries Europe is because of our partnership with them, is giving ECLF representation into the heart of Brussels. Frans Timmermans as cabinet and the new DG Move Commissioner Adina Valian have also been directly contacted in the last few months by Kevin Main and directors of CIE, and they've been promoting all manner of cycling, including cargo bikes. Now, on a more prosaic note, we've also done the first ever proper market survey of cargo bikes. And in addition, we're collating, which will shortly be published, we're collating a whole wide range of use cases as to how cargo bikes can help people do their lives and run their lives. Next slide, please. So our market survey only looked at 38 brands because it was the first one, and there are always limitations on these things. I can confidently predict that next year's will be much busier. None of these people sold more than 5,000 cargo bikes each in 2018, but 3 are confident they will do so in 2020. 7 were newcomers that haven't sold anything in 2018. They showed that private use of cargo bikes, domestic use, is growing as fast as commercial operations, and they've got about half the market each. Electric assist was 3/4 of 2019 sales. So non-electric assist sales have declined from 31% in 2018, and this trend is continuing. Three-wheeler sales are growing slightly faster than two-wheeler, but four-wheeler are not really getting a grip. And Germany at the moment is the largest national market for 16 out of these 38 brands. But it was interesting that 17 countries featured amongst the top 3 countries for at least one of the survey participants. Next slide, please. So you can see, first time ever, we're producing evidence here of rapid and significant growth in cargo bike sales across Europe. We know that this will be an underreporting. Next slide, please. Kevin Main, the CEO of Cycling Industries Europe, he points out in here that we're really doing a brilliant job here, that we're actually expanding, that we've got a diverse range of vehicles available, and that we're meeting market needs, because there is no way we would be selling that amount of cargo bikes if we weren't. Next slide, please. So, from that little canter through, what I'm asking you to think about is, what does scaling up look like? And I think there are obviously 2 strands. There's family bikes and bikes for business. In fact, you could argue that we should stop using the word cargo bike, but I don't think it'll happen for a while. So looking at cargo bikes for deliveries and services, well, the first thing we've got to do is become very familiar with the light commercial vehicle sector. There were 2 million LCV light commercial vehicles sold in Europe last year. 96% of them were diesel powered. We need the same kind of ecosystem that they use, and we want to substitute 1 in 2 LCV sales with cargo bikes. For us, that means 1 million cargo bike sales by 2030, and that will help meet the EU New Green Deal objectives. Going over to cargo bikes for families and private use, we studied use levels in Copenhagen. 40,000 regularly used in Copenhagen. If we extrapolate that, we think 500,000 to 1 million cargo bike sales by 2030 for private use. Next slide, please. So that would be 2 million sold annually. Let's put it in cheap at €3,000 each. Some of them were much more. That's still 6 billion annual sales. And then there's the second-hand market, the repairs and maintenance, the parts and accessories, the training of both the mechanics and the riders, the support services, the marketing, the insurance. And it's all going to be, as you've heard from Irene, fully digitally integrated. This is a really, really big deal now, if you look at this. Next slide, please. So I want to leave you with this. I think we're going through a growing up moment. I think that we've got everything to play for here. And I really welcome this Sustrans webinar. I think it's extremely well timed. And thank you very much for the briefing paper you've done, which contains some really useful suggestions. And I leave you with these 2 young police cadets in Vienna in 2017 on the cargo bike parade that we had in the rain on the Sunday before the last huge European Cyclogistics Federation conference. And they'd been bored out of their skulls watching us cause no damage whatsoever, 70 cargo bikes. So we said, well, come on then, you have a go. And you just look at that cargo bike smile, hey? It's brilliant. Thank you very much.
Richard, thank you ever so much for that. Yeah, a really uplifting and positive and optimistic last piece. So yeah, a perfect way to finish our formal presentations. We're running slightly over time, but we are going to move on to the Q&A now, hopefully for around 10 to 15 minutes, and then MJ is going to do a summary piece of the session for us. Myself and colleagues have been looking through the chat bar, and I'm just going to pull out a few of them. And anyone of the presenters, please feel free to answer. But the first one, I really loved it as a question. It was not to Dragon's Den you, but what are the competitive advantages of cargo bikes that allow you to make savings on normal logistics options? I know there was a couple of responses in the chat bar, but I didn't know if any of our presenters would like to say a few words about that question.
I think
just to jump in there,
Matthew.
just to jump in there, yes, it's Nick Stokes there. The main savings we certainly make are the running costs of the vehicle, of course. Much cheaper running costs than vans in the saving on fuel, but also the repair running costs, and the running costs of insurance are a lot less to insure these vehicles, especially cargo, of course. And staff turnover is an important one as well. You know, if you have active staff out cycling every day, they're generally happier people, so you have less staff turnover. It's probably the most succinct way for me to answer that.
Brilliant, thanks, Nick. And Richard, did you want to come in at that point?
Well, I made some comments earlier in the chat.
Great.
I noticed that there's a query about wear and tear on parts, and funnily enough, one of the big things that's happening now, thanks mainly to the work of Kevin Main and his colleagues at Cycling Industries Europe, is we are now having serious level discussions with the accessory and parts makers through CIE about delivering commercially useful brake kit and so on for cargo bikes. It's the first time we're having those conversations. They are taking place right now. I've got to be a bit careful. I don't name names. I've got to keep that neutral, but if you'll respect that. But I can promise you that is happening right now. And it's part of this whole thing of creating a viable ecosystem.
Brilliant, thank you, Richard. And the next question I think is for Nick up in ZMove, but there's definitely some interest in your NHS contract. Are you able to expand a little bit more on how secure your cargo bikes are for transporting medical goods, refrigeration, that sort of thing?
Yeah, Matthew, the two bikes that we've used for our work with the NHS are both lockable, both electronically and manually, that was one of the requirements that the trust placed on us when giving us that work, that we had to have a dual locking system. They also wanted two independent methods of tracking the bike and its payload. So we've had to make sure that we've got both a fixed and a portable GPS tracking system on the bike and the rider as well, to give the level of data tracking, live tracking utility that the trust required. Again, obviously transporting medical samples comes with great responsibility. So it did mean a bit of, not necessarily innovation, but we had to invest in the bikes that we've used for the NHS work and also train the riders to a particular standard. Again, the systems that we've used for electronic locking and load tracking, they're commercially available systems. We haven't had to invent anything. They're systems that are already out there in the world, which again is a great testament to where this sector's at the moment. But healthcare work does come with some added challenges. We haven't had to refrigerate goods in healthcare yet. The medical samples spend probably no more than half an hour on our bike, tracking between different bits of the NHS campus. We are refrigerating food and drink for other clients, and at this point we're just using insulated crates and either eutetic plates or ice packs to do so. So we've not gone down the road of electric cooling yet, but again, those bikes are now out there on the market. We'd love to be in a situation to give that a try in time. Hope that helps a bit.
That's a really great answer. Thank you, Nick. And this is another, I think, a wonderful question. And I'm not sure who to direct it at, but as e-cargo bikes proliferate, do you see a service ceiling where there are almost too many cargo bikes moving around our urban areas, affecting the experience of other active mode users?
Matthew, can I just jump in?
Yeah, please do.
So the Department of Transport is saying 54 billion miles are being driven by light vans in the UK every year. Cargo bike mileage, I suspect, is probably less than 100,000 miles combined, maybe a little bit over, I'm not sure. We have light years to go, in my view anyway, before we get to the point where we might ever be concerned that there are too many cargo bikes in our cities. We've certainly said in Newcastle, we could imagine 50 bikes very happily coexisting, a range of different carriers, because there are probably around 1,000 light vans coming in and out of the city every day from a whole different range of businesses and institutions. So my view is we haven't even scratched the surface yet in the UK.
Understood, and yeah, agreed. Richard, do you want to come in at that point as well? You're just on mute at the minute.
Right. Hi. Sorry about that. Yeah, very brief. I think that it's a non-problem. What is the real problem is what we do about parking, and that is a genuine problem. Obviously, I'm in favour of following the city of Malmo, who converted an entire inner city multi-storey car park to a cycle parking only. But that is going to be the kind of ecosystem response that we're going to need.
Great, thank you. I'm going to just do two last questions, I think. The first one is, okay, so Milton Keynes Council is setting up an e-cargo bike lease scheme, which is similar to the Edinburgh Cargo Bike Library, and they're struggling to get any data on the usage of bikes during winter periods. Can anyone advise on winter usage of their fleet or anything that they've heard about that, please?
Hiya. For example, last year in November, we had our entire fleet out for the winter. The only issue that we found was actually the initial training of people due to weather constraints. So once people were trained, and we do train with winter riding, and should you go out, what is your plan B if you can't, for whatever reason? And then the exciting news is this winter we will have all the data thanks to the partnership that we have with C-Sense. So we'll be able to actually give that in more real time. But being Canadian, the winters here are not an issue, really. I would say that the trikes tend to be a bit easier to ride in snow.
Great, thank you very much, MJ, for that. So the last question, yeah, I think it's a broader point. So we know that the likes of Sainsbury's and the Co-op have started to test cargo bikes. But what needs to happen to encourage supermarkets to take cargo bikes seriously and to scale up? There's a big one to finish the Q&A on.
Well, I think I've spoken on that one.
Sorry, could you repeat the question again?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just around just scaling up, and like lots of people are starting to try it. But is there anything that you see that really needs to sort of act as a catalyst or galvanize it? Richard's quite right that it seems that there's a big opportunity ahead of us, but it's just whether any of the other presenters see certain things as needing to change.
Well, I mean, I would say that the infrastructure being there to support the riders, I think some of the other presenters have touched on that the road surface conditions and the comfort can have a big impact for cargo bike riders. So sort of having some, being able to address that and ensure that that's managed, and also then that the right widths and making sure that the network is actually designed so that it's taking people where they want to go, especially for those people using it for logistics, that they can show that the network is accommodating where you're making deliveries to, because operators will want to know that being able to deliver using the cargo bikes can be done more efficiently than sending a vehicle in, right? And often these cargo bikes can do that faster and more efficiently. But having the network there to support that, I think, is only going to help accelerate the growth. And then, cities can also make policy decisions that reinforce that. So, initiatives maybe like doing Green Wave, for cyclists, helping to prioritize them at intersections, giving them preference in being able to park on some of the curbs and things like that over other vehicles. So there's policy decisions that could be made, and the location of those hubs. Where do they put, hubs for cities? And all of this can be, hopefully enabled by some of the data, but coming forward to influence that policy. There's policy and infrastructure, I think, coming together to help create that change, behavioural change.
That's great, Irene, and couldn't agree more. And you're quite right that all the presenters did talk about infrastructure and the importance of it and having that network there. And I did see a question pop up on the chat around the local transport note, whether it goes far enough. But it certainly seems, with the LTN, there's some good stuff in there. We know local authorities are developing their local cycling walking infrastructure plans at the minute. It feels like things are heading in the right direction, but of course let's make sure we consider it from the perspective of e-cargo bikes and where we want our towns and cities to be in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So great Irene, thank you very much for that.
Just
Richard,
one quick one.
Last point, Richard.
Yeah, I just think that everybody just needs to go out and do it. There's an awful lot of people sat around thinking of reasons why it can't be done, and actually you just need to go out and experience it and try it. And what will happen is you'll find you've got no trouble recruiting staff. Love it. Winter lockdown, no, it doesn't happen. Some of you will know that I do get involved directly in last mile logistics by cargo bike, so I do have some direct experience here. So there's no problem recruiting. There's no problem going through the winter. These are just not issues. The issue is to go and do it and go and work out how to make it financially viable.
Thank you for that point, Richard. Okay, we're perfectly on time. I'm going to now hand over to MJ from Sustrans Scotland, who's going to give us our closing remarks.
Hello all, and thank you for joining us, and it's very exciting times, and I just want to thank all those that participated. I think we really gave that ecosystem look at this and looking at those potentials. A lot of my notes are really based on what Richard just said, is that we have to be important to realize that we're at the beginning stages of this. Yes, cargo bikes have been there for 100 years, but the e-technology has driven this significantly more forward. And we're all at the beginning of this conversation, Europe, worldwide, and the UK. So we're no farther behind than other people. And it will take bold steps, and some bravery will be needed in this process. We keep on saying with COVID, we want to go back to normal. Our normal wasn't equitable, it wasn't inclusive, and it wasn't financially viable. It's just what we're comfortable with, it's what we know. So to step out of that comfort zone and try something different, and this is time to stretch and be creative and really kind of move forward boldly, and it will take bold steps. It will take bold steps from planners, from distributors, from local authorities to really say, okay, let's change procurement. Let's get active travel in all job descriptions, so we don't have someone saying, not in my job description, and move all of this forward. I think we're in a great place to start a new job recovery in this entire ecosystem, not just the bikes. And I would like to close this. So that's all my saying is, in this post-COVID world, we just need to be bold. There's not really a list of that, and it is much more visceral. But one of my major heroes is a woman named Frances E. Williard. She wrote a book in 1895 on how I learned to ride the bicycle. And her quote at the end is really the thing that I want to leave you with. So this is the words from a bicycle pioneer that many people might not know about. It seems to be the law of progress is everything we do. It moves in a spiral rather than perpendicular. We seem to be actually going out of our way, and yet it turns out that we were really moving forwards all the time. Thank you.
MJ, what a lovely way to end it. That was wonderful. And yeah, and just lastly from me, many thanks to MJ, to Irene, Nick and Robin, and Richard. It's been great to have you on the line. Thanks to the dozens and dozens of you who've listened in. I hope it's been useful. We've certainly enjoyed putting it together. And just to say, keep an eye out for the Sustrans Life After Lockdown policy briefing series, but also just to keep engaging us and keep working together, keep collaborating. We don't know all the answers, but we definitely want to help. So thank you again to everyone. Best wishes, and keep in touch.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.